is, we are recording and it is live, is I will put it on YouTube, and I will embed the link in the actual online exhibition. So that way you could just refer people to the exhibition, and then they can watch the recording of the talk, the reception. So later on today, or probably tomorrow, I'll get to that. But oh, let me see if there's anybody else that wants in. Oops, there we go. A couple people. Do we want to go ahead and get started? Okay. Everybody's so quiet. I just got off another Zoom. It was actually a Zoom artist talk that ended at 2:30, and it was kind of subdued too. But then I was on one earlier. I'm going to be like on 6 Zoom talks today. So, and they're all different, different energy. But thank you all so much for being here. I'm honored to be able to host this online exhibition, and especially during the pandemic, with you know, and a lot of the galleries are closed, and it's so hard to put together, you know, a group show, especially through LAAA, for, you know, your print group shows, you know, physically, and have anybody see it. So, you know, so I'm happy that I was able to do that. I'm Christine Shoemaker, and I run Shoebox PR, an artist marketing company and support network for artists. I run Art and Cake, an online art magazine, and then Shoebox Projects, which is my alternative art space. And we were physical until November, and then I went on hiatus. And then the pandemic hit, and I'm like, well, you know, things are going online, so I can use, you know, our website to host online exhibitions. And so we've been doing that, you know, quite a bit during the pandemic, and just another great way to be able to see art, you know, have a Zoom event like this so the artists can talk about their work, which I love even more than actually going to the openings, because you can actually hear the artists talk about their work and you learn a lot more. You know, seeing art in person is definitely, you know, of course we all want to do that, but to be able to hear the artists talk about their work is even more so. With that, what I'll do is I'm doing the technology stuff, and I'll post in the chat throughout a link to the exhibition. And then any other questions that you have, feel free to, you know, message me in chat or anything. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aviva, and let Aviva kind of run with it and do the other introductions and everything. So have fun.
Thanks. Well, it's such a thrill, because this is the end result of a year of 10 of us getting together every month and supporting one another with our work. And, oops, and somebody's not muted and we're getting echoes. I want to introduce Shana, but before I do, I just have to thank Christine. She's not only a fascinating artist, but she's one of the most powerful forces bringing together the arts community in Los Angeles. And she's so generous and so kind, and volunteered to host this exhibition. And all of us are just really, really grateful for that. So thank you so much.
Uh-oh, did she freeze?
Did I freeze?
Yeah.
Am I gone? Am I back?
And you're very welcome.
Am I back?
You are.
Back again. Yay! Yeah, I just got this big thing. Your internet is unstable. Well, so am I. So there we go. Shana is the arts editor for the LA Weekly. She contributes to Artillery, White Hot, Flaunt, Art and Cake. I hope I'm not missing anything. She's an art critic, a curator, an author. Please get her experimental novellas and Psychosis. But none of the professional accomplishments will tell you that she's also really funny and really witty and incredibly kind. She did a critique for our 10-person crit group. Some of us were terrified beforehand that somebody with her knowledge and credentials was going to look at our work. By the end, everybody felt so deeply seen, so deeply cared about. Everybody had the tools to go forward with so much more courage and so much more insight into their own work. She was tireless and insightful and so incredibly helpful. And we love her. So it's my honor and my privilege to introduce Shana Nys Dambrot.
Oh my God. Well, that's horrifying and amazing. Thank you. I love you back. No, I mean, I just want to say, like, these things are always, I've done, I don't know, whatever, a number of these over the years, exactly these, the LAAA crit groups, right? The final session, the pulling of an exhibition together, usually in, one of the artists' spaces that, they've donated for the purpose, that kind of thing, and seeing all of the support. And I've always been really fascinated by the sort of synchronicity of these groups because they're assigned. I'm not sure about this year because online, but in the past they've been assigned based on zip code, right? It's about you get assigned geographically so that it's as easy as possible to all go to each other's places, right? So you're not in a group and one person lives in Pacoima and that poor person or whatever. And so it's not like you're choosing each other or someone is curating you. It just happens. But every single time I've done one of these, I've encountered this amazing group dynamic where there really are like material and content and narrative impulses and kinds of like motivations and things under consideration where everybody winds up kind of belonging together. And then the shows are always these really awesome, pretty strong shows, even though, they're still super eclectic. And, I personally love what the group does in terms of forcing artists into conversations with each other that maybe you wouldn't have chosen. Like if you're an abstract expressionist painter, you might assign yourself like other abstract expressionists. But in this case, you have to talk to each other no matter what kind of work you're making. And I find that is really such like I don't want to say like underappreciated because I'm very sure that y'all appreciate it, but I really want to honor that part of the dynamic in these groups because it seems kind of like magic every time that it works, but it's every time. So I guess it's not magic. It's just part of the amazing process. And I'm a huge fan of 825. Many of you are obviously, well, all of you, because they're not shy with their emails, will be aware that I have juried their open show that happens to be up right now. And many of you are in that. And, I'm just a big supporter and believer in the organization. So I want to say that also. So I don't know, like the structure today, I don't want to make it like me just talking about everyone because exactly as Christine mentioned, this is an opportunity where we have everyone. So what I would say is maybe Aviva, if you want to, I mean, we can start with you or end with you or whatever. You're sort of like the unofficial troop leader. So, but, but if you want to just, go around the group of artists, and what I would really love is to have each one of the artists just talk a little bit about their work. And maybe, if you have a thought ready about the experience or what the arc of it was, and then I'm here. And so if I feel like somebody needs to be asked a question or a prompt, or if I want to make a comment or something, then I'll do that. But I think the most important thing is for the artists to introduce themselves.
That sounds great. What we thought we were going to do is go in the order of the show. So Alexa will start, and then it'll be me, and then Carl, and then Jeannine and Julie and Justin. Leslie just texted me that she is recovering from some surgery, and so she's not going to be able to join us for today. And Kevin and Sharon and Snezana, and so we'll kind of go that way. And we thought that we would say a few words ourselves and then you would help us along.
Perfect. That is the
Sounds
plan.
good. So, Alexa, you are up. Self-introduce and talk a
And
little
you
bit about
guys,
your
are
work.
you going to be screen sharing?
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Previously, it was going to be the artist and Shana talking, but do you just want me to screen share and Alexa can talk about the work as I'm showing the work?
That sounds great.
Yeah, that's a great, if it's easy to organize, especially since it exists as an exhibition already, that's probably, as long as it's easy, that would be rad.
So, Alexa, go for it. And unmute. There we go. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alexa Druyanoff. I work in many mediums, including oil paint and graphite. My pieces in this exhibition were made in an attempt to understand and process my family's history from my own perspective. Through the process of creating, I have gone to know them in a way that feels intimate. And so I hope that my rendering allows you to witness a transformation of my understanding of my identity in these pieces.
And I really loved these. And I remember we talked, and I wonder if you've thought more about that. I'm sure you have, in fact, I could guess, but about, what the relationship is to like when an artist starts out with something so personal, and then there are the moments then also of communicating like to strangers, the meaning and emotion of the work, and the relationship to photography and how black and white signals that it's the past, but color has all this emotion attached. And I remember being really excited about our conversation. I'm wondering if maybe you could talk just a little bit about that and how the choices get made.
Okay, so for me at least, it's really hard for me to personally know someone from a photograph. And so I decided to paint and draw them to get to know some of these people in an intimate way by rendering and like figuring out their skin tones and knowing their characteristics through drawing them. So the black and the white and the colored pieces are celebrating the lives of the people, even though there are some more serious tones of the Holocaust in some of these pieces, as they are based on a townlet called Druyanoff, which is where I get my last name. And those were the ancestors I originally was starting to connect with. And so through the color and even in the black and white, I wanted to convey a sense of their happiness and celebration in that moment and memorializing them at the same time.
That's beautiful. I love the combination ones like that one we're looking at where there's just a little bit of the color because it kind of punctures. It's like a yin yang, it's like a little dot of one and the other, and it cuts a little bit through that relationship to vintage photography, but it's just a little. So it's just like a little flicker, and then you get that kind of like that it's a contemporary artwork, that someone has made, but it's still kind of both things at once. I find that really interesting. These are cool. Very lovely. Wonderful. I figure like we could zip through, give like 4 or 5 minutes with everyone and get through the list. And then we can have questions and a conversation between everyone. Does that sound good? Because with 9 of you guys, 3 minutes is already half an hour. So I just to say, like, I'm not trying to, but all right. Those are really beautiful. Thank you, Alexa. I'm going to be really curious to watch, like what happens with the technique in other subjects with you in the future and how you wind up kind of like where you go from here. I think this is such a rich foundation. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
As I go through these, let me know if you want me to stop anywhere.
So I guess I'm up, and I'm Aviva Diamond. My work hunts for the sacred in everyday life, and I'm showing here both photographs and then some drawings. The photographs are interesting for me because I am normally out in nature, and I'm shooting the ocean and large bodies of water and seeing the entire universe in those. These are all part of a series called Tiny Immensities. And that's seeing the universe, seeing the macrocosm and microcosm, seeing universal in tiny things. And what has happened for me during COVID is that because I couldn't get out into nature, I started looking at slices of carrot. So if we could go back to the photos, I started looking at carrot slices. This one right here that you're looking at is when my disposal broke. It's my sink was clogged up, and I was watching the bubbles and swirls of water going around, and I suddenly saw this Degas woman washing her hair with stars. So this time has gotten me to look even more intensively. This is a carrot slice, but I see the universe at very small things, and recognizing that the vastness of the universe is contained in each of its parts. Is contained in a tiny drop of water or the broken arm of a cactus. And then the drawings are, instead of seeing that in the external world, it's my perception of my and the energy that I feel swirling through myself and through everything. And those I'm just learning how to express. I have more experience with the photos, and this is newer stuff.
Well, I remember, I mean, because obviously I've known you and your work, and there's some hanging in Osceola's house, so I literally see it every single day. But I think like when you started to share the drawings, online a couple of years ago, and a lot of them were like, at that time, were like hilariously angry. It was like so mad. It was like this feminist rage monsters, but like still so pretty and so sweet. And then to see that actually it's become something where, they're finished, right? You're finishing these works, like that's done. It's not, so it's immediate, but it's not like a sketch and then you move on. Like that is, it's finished, it's shaded, it's, resolved. And I loved our conversation in the Crit group that had to do with whether or not, and then the answer is yes, so then how, to integrate and be able to talk about both of these series or projects or expressions as being like, what are the relationships between them that don't just make them one thing and another thing. And that idea of like the energy patterns, I think I shared in the group, I have a fractal tattooed on my hand. So I'm all about this idea that the patterns are the same from the macro all the way up to like the galaxy to, yes, like water in a drain. And so the idea that a more like surrealist automatic drawing process might yield versions of that same kind of pattern swirl energy, to me makes a huge amount of sense. Like I see it, it's clear to me. So I was really excited that Aviva let me kind of force them together, and that's part of the reason we wanted both of them in this show, because I really see a lot more that they have in common than they have difference. Once you get below the just obvious like adjectives of black and white and color and stuff, I really feel a similar essence animating both of these projects. So I'm super excited to see them together.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, for me, all of them represent the times when we're seeing beneath the surface of the world. Whether it is our physical world, our bodies, or whether it's the external world, when you feel the energies that form us and unite us.
And I like the idea too that, there's going to be like some unimaginably vast amount of art about COVID that you don't even know what's coming, people. It's a whole universe of it being made out there, and God help us all. But I do feel that a moment like this, that's not like about it, but that is like integrally related to like, so I wrote about the Andy Goldsworthy show. And, you know, obviously Andy Goldsworthy is like a god walking on earth, and that's fine. So that was, you know, but the thing is, this is work he made during quarantine, and he, like everyone else, was just like, okay, well, I can't go find a river. So how do I figure out how to do what I do, but just like within walking distance of my house? And that to me was really powerful, because the work was not about topically the pandemic, but it nevertheless was a direct response in that way. And I felt like that is a really interesting place to be with all of this. So I'm a fan. Anyway, thank you, Aviva.
Thank you. So, Carl?
Carl, is that my brother?
Unmute here.
Unmute yourself.
Okay. So I'm a photographer, as you can see. Much of my work is rooted in what I think of as street photography, which is unlike Aviva, of looking for the sacred in everyday life. It's looking for the mundane and overlooked in everyday life. So here, that's really what these are all about. These are all candid shots of what was going on, where I was at the time. Just happened to see them. Some I saw when I had my camera with me. Others when I had my camera phone with me. That's always the best thing, of whatever camera you have with you is the best one. So it's really about what I saw, and my seeing them as the beauty of the mundane that surrounds us, and seeing that in many different ways. This one here, this is called Chatting with, I'm sorry, Chatting with the Joker. And it crosses some of the things that Shana was talking about, well, you can't go out because it's COVID, and so you have to do what you can do. Well, this is kind of a mixture, because it was taken during COVID, and that's why the Joker was sitting there, because he didn't have a crowd of people to be plying his wares with. He was just being himself, sitting on steps with a friend and having a chat, and this other guy in the background, and the combination of all those. I found interesting as a street photo, the combination between the two of them. And in its own way, though I don't present it as such, it was also kind of a documentary or journalistic photo. So it kind of crosses all those spheres at the same time. Let's see. This one I found interesting because of the way it looked, but also a part of, this is a part of my Overlooked series, which is the mundane things that we overlook in our daily life, and that I find interesting because of their aesthetic value. And part of that is the contradiction, or what we value, what we look at, and where we look at it. This is a part of a subset called in the gallery, Overlooked in the Gallery. And this is something that I found in a parking garage within a block of LACP, LA Center of Photography, photo center here in LA, where I would go regularly. And I would see this regularly. So it's kind of like, what's in the gallery, but what's right outside the gallery that you don't even notice, and that I find interesting.
I feel that so hard. I mean, there's a tree that's held up by a crutch outside of the Mac Center on Kings Road. And I feel like whenever I go there, it's like, and I have to go visit that tree. It has nothing to do with the Mac Center. It's like 3 houses away, but you notice it as part of the process and your surroundings. And I remember this one with the scissors I was obsessed with, because it looks exactly like the one at Paul Smith. Like the way that those women organized themselves and the angles of their bodies and the way they sort of scattered themselves across the wall, I guess, so they could get enough room for their selfie, right? And then I looked at the scissors one and I thought, well, gravity did the same thing to this, and magnetism did the same thing to the scissors as the bodies intuitively organized themselves on this wall. And that really opened up a whole like dimension for me with your work of seeing like what it is that your eye is on the lookout for.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Thank you. And it's
definitely.
finding this there naturally. It wasn't created. Someone like with this one, the modeling one. This was
That's like
taken
a
before.
Renaissance painting. It's so right, and the
Right.
big yeah, it's so
And the shadows are just as much participants in it as the people. And this was happening before thousands of people were showing up to do just the same thing. I even took a photo, as I mentioned before, of the same wall before anyone was taking any kind of photo of it. And this is just what evolved. People often think of it as, oh, it's set up, it's posed, it's artificially created, but this is just what was there. Same kind of thing with the scissors. It was on the wall at my hand therapy center, and I was getting some therapy for my hand and looked to the side, and that was what was there. So I grabbed my cell phone and had to take it. And again, it's what's there, what's the beauty, what's the aesthetically pleasing in all of its different forms that are just around us if we can let ourselves look and see.
No, I love that. And I love the idea that that can include the way bodies arrange themselves as well as objects, and that sort of connection there. And, you know, and this is like, yeah. So this is like one of those things that I was talking about at the very beginning, where you find yourself like, you know, having a conversation that's not entirely dissimilar to the one we had with Aviva about patterns and energy patterns and the forces that organize the world around us and noticing them, but obviously in, you know, very different ways. So that was definitely exciting. Thank you, Carl. Beautiful.
Thank you. And what's the next one?
Let's see. We have coming up next,
Jeannine.
Jeannine. No, that's Carl's.
Hi. I'm Jeannine Shannon Penn, and I'm kind of a mashup of an artist and a designer. Mostly a painter when I'm doing art, but I've also been a graphic designer and creative director most of my professional life. A little backstory, because I think it's important. I always did art, and when it was time for me to go to school, my father said, think of something more practical, because you can't be an artist. You can't be a painter. He was a very nice man, but he was very practical. So I went to school for architecture and graphic design, and that became my career. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was at a Los Lobos concert. Maybe I was a little buzzed, I'll admit it, but I had been carrying around broken plates that once belonged to my grandmother that I never met, and then my mother, who had passed away, and my husband was like, why are we moving broken plates? I said, I have no idea, but something is happening with these broken plates. And that night, I saw a vision of this piece of art. It's actually hanging right behind me over there. And that got me back started into painting and creating. And the pieces that, I'll get to the ones you're seeing in a minute, but the pieces that I started with, for the most part, were very personal. And they were a way of me keeping memories of my mother and her family that I never knew alive. And these photo books that are falling apart were in a drawer. And I thought, who's going to care? Who's going to look at these in 20, 30, 40 years? So I started taking pieces and scraps and putting them and creating paintings and mixed media pieces that were very, very personal. But I felt like that this is really cathartic for me, but where do I go next? And then I started to create the work that you're looking at, which was more of an abstraction of dreams and thoughts and memories. And most of these pieces actually have little messages or pieces of paper or things that have come from experiences, whether it's travel or my mother's scrapbook, because I energetically wanted to keep things out there and alive. And part of my intention is to preserve memories, dreams, life in any way I can. When I came into the Crit group, which was my second group, I think that I felt still a little disjointed about what's my lane. And I think that Shana, and I was very nervous about having our initial thing with you because it feels like another level that I want to be at, but I'm not quite there. But you reinforce that, you know, even there's a piece not in here, which is one of my favorites, but it had a leaf, and you made a comment like, that's a whole new lane. You could be in that lane, but as the observer and the person that takes in the art and how you want people to experience it, you've suddenly taken it off in a new way. So I'm really like grateful for this time, and your input and our group really gelled so beautifully, even through pandemic. I just posted about this the other day, like we kept it together and we, you know, looked forward month after month to what we were doing. And I feel like I'm so poised and ready for, despite this really shitty year, 2021 being a new level of what I can do with my art. So yeah, my pieces are abstract. They're very much coming from dreams. I feel a lot that it's almost like, I'm not a musician, although I play piano, but it's almost like music. There's something that happens here, and then I go into a lot of little spaces with each one where every little part of the painting has to be right or it's not done. And it's probably a little bit of my design background because this is much looser, but just it's all a little problem solving of making sure not only did I get the expression of what is happening out, but I have complete balance on a canvas. That's really important to me too. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, I think I remember our talk, and I think it's really interesting because, you know, here's the thing. I read stuff that I wrote in college and it makes me want to die. But I couldn't just be 19 and then now be now. So every single part of everything that you do is not necessarily destined for an audience that will be wide and appreciative, but that doesn't make it less than essential, right? And so to me, I feel like a lot of what you describe in the early work, that was your way in to this new part of yourself. And then, you know, you're figuring out what that's going to be. I really loved the idea of where it's at right now, where there's still some things that are in the work, but the work is becoming its own abstract language. But like when you're working abstractly, two things. One, it's really good to have a kind of identifiable energy source, right? Because you're not just doing like pure formalism. So you have this sort of like, you know, for my nerds out there, you have this like infinity stone like buried in there, and you know, like all the energy that is accumulating around that painting has to do with some small leaf from a diary, and maybe by the time you're done painting, the viewer won't even be able to see it, but it's in there and the energy is in there, and that's the story of the painting, which even when work is abstract, the human mind still wants a story. And so there is a really nice balance, you know, that can be achieved with those things. And I was really excited to talk to you about, this moment. Like, I love that one because there's a huge amount going on, yet it's empty and kind of minimal, but actually there's a lot of action. And I think like those little flickers are, they're working for you. So it was a real pleasure to get to know you and your story in this.
I know your names. The name of this one is Whispers.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what you just described. It's like the story's there, but it's quiet, and you have
to lean in to really hear it and
hear it.
All of that.
So yes, thank you for helping me get some clarity. And I mean, I look at this now and it feels like a body of work.
Right? It's like, that makes sense, and it's
right.
You.
And that is what I had to get to a place of. I had to work it through with all the stuff that I was doing that was really personal and related to my family. But the truth is, people enjoy looking at it in my house and talking to me about the work and my mom and what happened. But I ultimately realized, where does that go from here? Right? If I want to be out in the world as an artist, it's very personal, and I had to figure that out. But it takes a while. I have my 17-year-old journals too, by the way, from college.
Oh yeah, you do. Okay.
I am so embarrassed.
They're horrifying. I mean, there's an entire literary franchise, the Mortified franchise, that is like that. What it is grown adults reading their like high school journals.
Oh my God, I was so dramatic all the time too.
And they're amazing. So it's real. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I'm not afraid. I'm good.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Julie, you're up.
Julie.
Okay, hi. Okay, so a lot of my work kind of has to do with what makes what, and can I take something apart and put it back together again and it still be the same thing? So when I was younger, I always wanted to know, how does a car work? It's got to be more than you put gas in a tank and press a pedal and then you go from A to B. And so we went to Auto Museum in Detroit, and that's sort of how you see this is how a car works. And there's so many more things that go on. And so then I tried to kind of figure out, if I take something apart and put it back together, will it still be the same? If I keep something out, will it be the same? Will it do what it should do? Or if I untangle something, will it be that same thing? And so that one thing, if I keep that out, is it crucial? Is it important? Is it still going to work? And if all of these things that are used to make something work are sort of separated, do they protect each other? And so with all of that, I use a lot of different mediums and just try to kind of create different ways of expressing things that maybe I can't say myself, and try to sort of find what it is that makes something vulnerable out in the world, or some grand idea that I have that I'm just trying to kind of throw out there. So I feel kind of that everything in the world has all of these layers, and that they all protect this one tiny little crucial thing, that then if you take everything apart and try to reestablish it and put it back together, that little one thing is protected by all of those other bits. So that's basically what I'm trying to show.
No, I love that. And I think that's a really interesting way of, I think that's a really poetic and really lovely, like, literary way of sort of explaining your relationship to color and texture, which, resonates with like a lot of the more formalist ways, or, the sort of color theory ways, right? You hear a lot of abstractionists talk about, if you have a field of hot, like yellow and red, and then you put a little bit of blue or black or purple somewhere in that, and how it you would think that it would disrupt it, but actually it kind of galvanizes the whole thing, or, you know, so like the mechanics of how color and shape work in abstraction, you know, is a lot of parallels to what you were talking about literally how things work physically. And I definitely see, you know, that playing out in the images. Like I've been playing in my mind this little game while you were talking, like, well, what if I took that rust out of the bottom and left everything else the same, but I took that little bit of rust, like the whole thing would fall over, right? So I really definitely see what you're talking about as these are being constructed, and yet they don't look constructed because they're so sort of organic and gestural. So I think it's really interesting. And you know, yeah, exactly. Like that one, like that one like sliver of ox blood, right? Like if that were gone, there wouldn't be an anchor. So then you wouldn't be able to start navigating the space and like all the things your brain needs to do. So I really love that. And something that seems so sort of expressionistic, actually there are these like mechanical decisions happening that construct it and hold it together. I find that very interesting. So thank you for that explanation. That was really beautiful to hear.
I think a lot of this also comes from when I was younger. Well, I still do this now. I would take things from the kitchen table or restaurant and make these balanced sculptures that had to stay there throughout the entire meal. And
I'm sure your parents absolutely loved that.
They loved it. They absolutely loved it. And so if it fell over, then I'd have to put it back. So I think that also kind of helped form all of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my dad got me a book when I was little called The Way Things Work. Shout out to everyone that was a child of the 70s, because y'all probably had it too. But it was literally like trying to explain stuff for like the mind. And I never really read it, but I was always really appreciative that just exactly what you said, like the awareness that things have to work. They don't just like happen, that there's a whole, yeah, exactly what you said. That's awesome. I haven't thought about that in a while. Thank you for that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. So Justin?
Yeah, hi, I'm Justin Prough, and my work is really about kind of political and environmental issues. And today I have a few pieces from two different series I want to show. And the first one is actually called The Whitewash in America. And it was a response to, believe it or not, a car ride I had with my 9-year-old daughter. We were coming back from soccer practice, and it was during the whole shithole country thing, and Trump kind of ranting about, you know, immigration and whatnot. And she's actually adopted from Ethiopia. And she got quiet in the back seat. We're listening to NPR and this news article's on, and she gets quiet and she goes, "Daddy, are they gonna send me back to Ethiopia? Because I don't have a family there and I don't know what I'd do." And she was like traumatized, like the rhetoric coming out of the White House at the time, and still to this day, was traumatizing my daughter, my children. And I wanted to say something about that, do something about that, to let her know that this is not right, this is wrong, this is not patriotic, and this is how it shouldn't be. So I started constructing these wall hung assemblage pieces where I was actually using the kids' toys to help tell these stories about what was going on and what was wrong with the situation. This one here we're looking at now, it's actually called Dump Trump. And it's kind of a, you know, it's showing our nation in distress. It's showing the Dump Trump dump truck dumping really what I think are the foundations of our country. And what we're left with is the stuff that's actually being written into the flag. And to this very day, by what we're seeing in the media right now, I think this is true. And it's not what America's about. The one previously that we saw was actually called Kick 'Em Out. And it's hard to see here, but it's constructed of Barbie doll legs. And it spells out "grab 'em by," and then again the flag is upside down to show our nation in distress. So these were two pieces from a larger series that actually is in Shoebox here. You can go see it if you'd like. After I'll post the link. But it really starts to show like the different ideas and kind of struggles I'm having as an artist right now in the time we're having. So these pieces were political, but at the same time, we have this environmental crisis going on. And, you know, I'm a big surfer and I've surfed around the world. And usually when I'm getting out of the water, I'll kind of pick up a little bibble or bauble of a shell here, or a piece of wood there on my way home. And it is about a summer and a half ago, I picked up the shell and I was really interested. I didn't know what it really was from, what kind of creature had made it. So I brought it home and I looked it up. And at the same time, I started reading about the things that are happening within the world, specifically the ocean itself. And one of the things I didn't realize with climate change, specifically global warming, as we're pumping more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, the ocean is one of the largest collectors of that carbon. But what it does, it actually makes the ocean more acidic. And that acidity is changing the chemistry of the ocean, where creatures that create shells to live, the shells won't harden if it gets any more acidic. And like, this is like, oh my God, this is horrible. So, you know, it really kind of threw me into a tailspin for a while. And then I started thinking, I said, we can get our stuff together. We're humans. We can figure this shit out. And this is really random, but I started thinking about, like, you know, the Wookiees from Star Wars and Kashyyyk, their home world. And these guys are like super technology creatures, but at the same time, they're living at one with nature. I'm like, heck, man, we're humans. We're smart. We can figure this out. So I started creating these sculptures that are also like time capsules of the different kind of artifacts, organic artifacts that we can find along our seashore today that may not be there in the future if we don't get our act together. And I wanted them to be kind of biomechanical, almost like worlds or creatures or vehicles that people would use. But at the same time, I know where all these elements were collected from. I know the dates. So they're almost scientific gatherings of artifacts of today, of our natural world today, that may not be in the future. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful we'll get it together, and someday people like these are little kooky creatures and whatnot. And this one specifically also has a little bit of a COVID rub off on it. It was one of the last days before lockdown. I took my daughter to the Santa Monica Pier, and, you know, thinking through COVID, they started getting dark. So this is actually kind of like a mashup between sea creatures, and that the pier as we know it, when we come out of this, will probably be changed. Will it be a mausoleum or a museum? I'm not sure, but I think humans, we got to figure that out.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I'm really, you know, what I'm interested in both cases, always, and we talked about this a little bit, is, you know, I won't say problem, but challenge of political art is that it almost is an oxymoron and what I mean by that is, for something to sort of be successful politically, it has to kind of like shout a clear message at you so that it makes itself understood. But we all might agree that, you know, art that becomes timeless or, you know, has to kind of transcend some of that, and like nuance and mystery are good, even if beauty's not on your agenda, which doesn't have to be. So, you know, for me, I'm always appreciative of work that's able to kind of straddle those things. And so, like, to create a compelling, quirky, engaging, charming, you know, and or a beautiful object that does not aestheticize the problem, but is also something that you can live with in your home without, you know, getting upset every time you see it, right? And so, because, you know, Leon Golub or something, it's like, God, who doesn't, you know, Leon Golub's obviously, or Joseph Beuys, but these are not necessarily like images that the spirit can handle taking in, you know, all day, every day. And so as an artist, like threading that needle between having something urgent to say and creating objects that can kind of transcend that headline ripping quality is no easy feat. And I love both of these series because I feel like that's the place that they're operating, is elements of both of those things. And I think that's so important and so hard to do. So yeah, it's nice to see them again, especially because I can't quite remember, but I feel like a year has passed since we spoke a few weeks ago. So context is everything, right? And you want like we're on the other side of, it's not obviously not fully whatever, but there's a huge relief that we can all allow ourselves to experience, right? And so, but we also can't ever forget, but so there's like, it's all these moving parts and this evolving emotional dynamic of all these issues. And I'm really glad you made this work. I think it's an important document of the time in more ways than one. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And also, last time we spoke, you introduced me to a phrase I love, which is the honey trap.
Yeah, the honey trap. It's like, because you catch the honey and vinegar, like, you make something beautiful or empathetic or gentle, and by the time somebody has figured out what's really going on back there, it's too late. They've seen your work, they're in it now, and they've discovered the message. And I love that too. That's right, honey trap. I think I was watching like some British spy show at the time, so it was on my mind. That's a term from espionage, by the way, honey trap. So take that for what it's worth. Thank you for pulling that back. Oh my God, this is fun. All right, what are we doing? Kevin, what's up, Kevin?
Hi, Shana, how are you?
I'm great, how are you? I love your setup.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is my studio from like a year and a half ago. So I had a screenshot of it, and this is my backdrop.
Oh my God, perfect.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm Kevin Mishler, and I am drawn to drawing celebrity, iconic people who have put a stamp on the fashion industry, trendsetters from the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, and also the 60s. Like Jeannine, my background is I went to school for fashion illustration, graduated, went to school in New York City at FIT, graduated with a degree in menswear design. And I kind of lost my soul of who I was as, I lost my identity. Getting trapped into the fashion industry, I kind of lost sight of what was my true passion, which is drawing. And I've always been drawn to people who have been iconic role models, like I said, in fashion, just people who were true to who they are. Loving, Cher, Boy George, Freddie Mercury, Madonna, Jimi Hendrix, just true iconic rock and pop artists, not afraid of taking a chance and being true to themselves. So like myself, I just lost myself, and I was not happy with, I had an amazing career, but I just was not happy. I wasn't fulfilled. I, kind of lost my soul in myself. Within that, I went through some troubling times, losing somebody very important to me, and again, just lost who I was. Like Jeannine, I went to a Madonna concert in Miami, and a friend of mine had a table book of the #1 portrait artist in the country, and I was going through the book, and at that time I realized, why am I not drawing? And at that point, I started to pick up a pencil after 25 years, and I started to get back to my passion. So this is where I am now, drawing the people who have basically molded me or created who I am today. And again, being a risk taker and not being afraid of being who you are is what I kind of represent. So that's kind of my story. Trying to find where I'm going to go with my art. My next step within my art is to combine my fashion background and my art and create a line around my artwork. So that's kind of my goal of where I want to take my art. So.
No, that's great. And I really, really enjoyed speaking with you during the group because, the questions I had, you completely answered, why black and white, why if their sartorial bravery was part of the inspiration, don't we see it? And your answers were so spot on. And it was because actually it's not, it's about the essence behind how they were, that the fact, yes, they're fabulous, yes, the glasses, yes, every single thing Prince wore, yes, my God, Madonna, I think we talked about Just Really Seeking Susan, all of that. But that's not the reason you're making these. You're making these because you're interested in the self behind all that, which is your connection to it. And it was just so deep and really, and it explained everything, like why it's all about the eyes and why you don't have their whole trip and yet they're instantly recognizable, and like what all that is and how black and white brings it down to like this, this, intimate level, like all of it. So, yeah, and that would have been my question, that and I know we talked about this during the crit, that I love too, the idea that it's an entryway back into something that you've had success with before and maybe will again, except on your own terms now. And it's because of these people, and then they'll be who's like, it's just like I can't wait for you to have a whole line. So some lucky publicist gets to write that press release of how the line came about, because it's so like right there. God, I love Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, for me.
So, and I'm just as an aside, your situation with rendering hair is like on a whole other level, truly. Like, these remind me of Nagel, but Nagel never really got the hair. It was always like some weird purple triangle.
Yeah. Hair for me is like the last nightmare. It's like a nightmare, but it's like a love-hate relationship. So to me, it tells it all. It tells the story.
It really does. And it also is like, you almost have to, the way you do it, you can tell it kind of has to be a strand at a time. And like, that's no joke. And anyway, appreciation, just like as a sheer like technical mastery, like hair has undermined a lot of great artists over the centuries. So,
absolutely.
Honoring that. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my God. Thank you, Kevin. It's nice
to
see you.
Shannon. Thank you. So nice to see you too. Thank you.
So our next artist would be Leslie Barton. She is recovering from surgery and unfortunately can't be here. But Shana, do you want to say anything about her work, or do you want to?
I will for just 2 seconds, and just to say, obviously, Leslie, what do you mean you didn't want to give a public talk about your art, like all hopped up on morphine? Like, what kind of, just kidding. We obviously, I would have been like, where do I start? I think that you'll recover well, and we all obviously send you our best wishes. Leslie was another one of you guys, and again, it was a lot of synchronicity where there were a couple of different bodies of work, and we just worked together to find the commonalities. And then when I was picking them, I wanted to like reinforce that story, that there are these amazing shapes that are abstract, but slightly maybe starting to refer to the body in some this one is obviously like the most overtly that, but it's still not like anatomically accurate. It's just kind of clear, but maybe it's not clear, but you think it is, and then maybe you're projecting, and it's just like, there's a lot. And I remember, really appreciating the quirkiness, your lungs, intestine. I'm getting that internet is unstable, so sorry, it'll come back. But what I really loved the most about this work was the palette, which is so eccentric and so unforgettable and so sort of like wrong, like orange and pink and lime green, like get out of here. And yet it's so balanced and so alive and so interesting. And so, it's we miss you here today, Leslie, but I'm really excited that the work is in this group. I think it definitely belongs here. A lot of the same kinds of conversations.
And we wish you a very quick recovery. And
Absolutely.
Now to Sharon Koppelman. Sharon? I know you're there. Are you trying to unmute? There you are.
Convinced it, pardon me. Sharon Koppelman, I'm an abstract painter. My paintings are an exploration of the world around me, but the unseen world. I have strong feelings that much of reality goes on behind the scenes. And those feelings are the energy that come to my work. The works that you'll see here are some that have the most energy, very high energy. And my inspirations came to me in various ways. And I do want to note that Shana answered some questions I had about my work before I even asked the questions. And it was incredibly helpful and released a little bit of my hesitation about the direction in which to take my work. And you'll see 4 pieces here.
Yeah, I remember we talked and I was like, first, let me say that weird is a compliment coming from me, right? We were like talking about how like my favorite of all of the work you had were the weirdest ones. And by weird, I meant like they're abstract, but the ones that really start to like say that they're based on something, some kind of space or architectural organization that we understand with our mind as well as our body, a perspective down across the table maybe. And it's like, it's probably not that. There's probably a lot of, you know, projection on the part of the viewer, but that I love that in these ones, especially the way that you give that to both parts of the brain, so that there's a lot to chew on in terms of like the pure abstract energy, but there's also a lot for the brain to kind of sort out and navigate and organize the space. And I love that collision of those things, yeah. And again, the palette, which is so interesting. I love that because I'm not even gonna say anymore because I don't want to ruin it for anyone who doesn't see what I see. But this is exactly the kind of image where everyone is going to see something different in it. But the point is they see something, right? Like this is the kind of thing that people will experience as a picture and not as a pure abstraction, but it has the energy of an abstraction. So the way it bounces the mind around is something that I'm very interested in. And I love the color sense as well.
Thank you.
You guys are great. How we doing? We're almost there.
We're doing great. This is our last artist, and Snezana. Oh, can't wait.
I love this work. And Snezana was someone before you start who obviously like I picked like a body of work just for like clarity, but you're somebody like you could throw a rock in any part of your practice and hit something that's completely interesting in its own way. And there's so many amazing different sections, but this is what we're focusing on today. So Snezana.
Yeah, thank you, Shana. And that really brings the focus on what I'm doing right now, but also is part of the larger body of work that I've been working on in the past couple of years, dealing with the beauty and ethics. I don't like to think that I'm producing a political work, even though it's questioning our place in the relationship to the ecology and the toxicity that we're causing. The use of plastic does on a symbolic level, the zip ties are covering and strangling the beauty of the corals and nature. And in the most recent work, I turned from the ocean, which Justin was talking really well about, like I have the same intentions behind, but with the different mediums. And looking into the activation of spaces and a human potential to actually rework and remake the world to be a better place. So the collateral damage comes from the idea of us causing the damage unintentionally. It's a military term, but it's clearly applied here with the actual intention. My intention is to have the loving kindness behind it, not to
point finger at anybody because we equally contributed to that. The situation, the state that we're in. I love the title of this exhibition, Time of Questioning, because in all the pieces that we were discussing today, as well as in mine, we have actually bigger questions about our own place in the universe, what is that we are doing, and so forth. I would hope that maybe we can look into the video that is on my Zoom, and I'm just going to close down. Can you switch, Christina? Because the work is interactive, and I think it's important to view it as what it is actually behind the images. So each image that you had seen becomes activated with the app Artivive, and actually turns into the alive environment. And with the different intentions, like this one is showing the life underneath the ocean. At the same time, on the left side, you see bleached corals. This one is done while I was diving in Huatulco in Mexico last year. So in some ways, the shape resembles the COVID. I had like people reacting to that as such, that the construction of the zip ties. In this case, it's opening up, and you can see how alive the underwater is. This is the newest work in collaboration with the dancers, the activation of spaces, keeping in mind the main elements. So this one is about the fire, the desert, also the water. Water is a big part of my exploration in the work that I have. And then this inability and ability at the same time to break the cage that we are in. So it's interesting how that really works for the life that we live right now with the pandemic and all these like spikes that are threatening, or the shapes that I did like way before the pandemic, but still resemble the COVID COVID shape. So I guess we see what is happening to us at the moment. We perceive it in such a way. The work is also intended to be presented in different sites. So I had a number of exhibitions since the COVID started that were outdoors with these still images that actually turn into life as you're activated images with your iPhone. So that being said, iPhone is here and it was ringing. I'm sorry for that. But I don't know, Shana, do you want to add something?
What just happened? That was amazing. Okay. I want to take a Zoom class from you. I want my Zooming. You have just like raised the bar on Zooming. Like that was incredible. No, I appreciate that. And that's a whole other conversation that like anyone, and now this may be like, you know, we can check in with Christine and see how, like, if there's questions in the chat box, because, you know, what you just said is like, that is part of how we ended up with this title, is because, you know, artist by artist, everybody had questions. That's why you do something like join a crit group, right? That's the reason. But also we are all in this all caps time of questioning, like everything's a question. What the hell is happening? What's going to happen? Why is this happening? What can I do? When will this end? How can I start? Why is actually this kind of an amazing time, even though it's the worst? Or it just like nothing but questions, nothing but questions. Where do I vote? You know, nothing but questions. And so I feel that, you know, context is so important, and like whether you guys like it or not, this is the context in which, you know, we're experiencing everything in the world, and that includes your art. And so, you know, the sort of like mindfulness that we've all been, you know, kind of pushed into, thanks to the pandemic conditions, has really activated a lot in our sort of collective unconscious and in our own, you know, in every person. And it's such a volatile, amazing time, and yet, you know, it's so full of contradictions. And art is, to my mind, one of the superpower of art is to be able to contain paradoxes within itself in a way that external reality and even language can't always accomplish. And so you can look at something like that work, and you know, you talked about Justin's work, but this goes for everybody, where it's about like life and death at the same time, for example. And so it's about the personal and the universal. It's about abstraction and architecture. It's about, you know what I mean? It's about memory and the future. And it's about who I was and who like, whatever your list of contradictions is, art has an ability to resolve them. And I feel like that's kind of like the dynamic of this moment. And so it was really interesting to look at work that is either being made or revisited, reinterpreted in this unprecedented context. And that, to me, sort of animated our whole undertaking together. But it's really encapsulated in your specific work. Like, that is literally what you're doing in this work. And, you know, the idea of it being something you go see outside, but that so that it's full body, but it's finished with your phone, so that it's technology and disembodied, is also very interesting, because that's just one more contradiction that, you know, is a condition of modern life. And so I love you being in this group. I think, you know, and that's kind of exactly what, you know, you're helping me make, like, the original point I made, which is the way a crit group operates, to sort of force all you guys into this proximal conversation and to tease these things out, compare and contrast. I think, you know, I would speak for all of you, and I would say it seems like it's a really valuable experience. So there you go.
And it was because we were like the first generation getting into the Zoom experience and doing the crit group and learning how to do it together. And it really proposed like another question for me, proposes like this experience. And that's why I started looking into more of a digital images and digitized art. That one is, you know, a friend of mine, an art historian, said, I miss so much going to the museums and see the artwork in person and texture and all of that. And then it made me really think, like, how do you do something that can be the same experience, whether you're in the museum, whether you're outside, you're inside in your home, and how can you create a work? And I think something of that kind of questioning is embodied in this work that I was doing, trying to create something that's not lacking of the experience, but having everything about it, no matter where you're at. So, I mean, thank you for focusing on this work.
Thank you. That's great. All right, Aviva, Christine, what's been happening back there in the control room this whole time, you guys? What do you have going on back there?
There aren't any questions in chat, but I think if anybody has any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask away.
I love it. We answered all your questions.
I was going to say, we dealt with the universe.
We handled it. And exactly perfect. 1 hour and we solved every problem. Let's go get dinner. No, it's great. It's really cool. I feel like I'm talked out, but I just would only repeat myself to say, like, thank you for having me and thank you for trusting me. And I really enjoyed the process. So.
Well, I think all of us will unmute and chime in and thank Christine for hosting us, and thank you for giving us gifts that we can never adequately thank you for. I mean, it's so huge. It's going to change the way all of us deal with our work. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Shana.
Thank you, Shana.
Thank you, Shana and Christine.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shana and Christine. Thank you.
And thank you to this group, because it's been so supportive. Everybody has cared so much about one another and made that transition from in-person critiques to doing it online. Some people weren't enthusiastic for the first one. but,
Remember that.
but what we found us
It's
closer together than we probably would have been in person. It really forged a connection, I thought, and it's been a fantastic group, at least for me. So thank you to the whole group, and thank you to Christine, and thank you so much to Shana.
Thank you very much. I love our group. We have such an awesome group.
It's really been good. It's
I've
really
heard.
Wonderful.
You have it on private, right? Yeah. Okay.
Nope, not
Right.
private.
Everyone is not on private.
No, you don't have it on private, my friend. No, you do not.
You're welcome.
No, I can speak for the LAAA critique groups, and I know Jennifer can. Jennifer and I met and have been great friends ever since our first critique group in 2011 or 2012, I think.
I think it was 12.
And
12,
Osceola was in it too.
Yeah.
Right, that's right. He was telling me about that just yesterday because I was saying I was doing this, and he's like, this all started. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I have a lot of friends. I think 825 really connected me to the LA art community, and a lot of my friends were from crit groups and things, or just friends of friends. That's really how I got into the network.
I love that. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work. So that is brilliant. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah, big thanks to the Los Angeles Art Association and to how supportive both the organization is and the people within it. I only started showing 6 years ago and, just getting into full-time artwork 6 years ago. And I thought the art community would be snooty and exclusive and, who the hell are you thinking you can jump in at this late stage of life and all of that. And instead, people have been so warm and so welcoming and so kind and so supportive. And I think the Los Angeles Art Association is a big part of that, and people like Christine and like Shana who are incredibly nurturing and community minded. It's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I like it. I like it. We'll send a copy of this to Peter Mays so he can.
There we go.
Yeah, totally.
Waive our dues, right?
Right. We cut a commercial for you, Peter. So
It feels like we're doing a PSA right now.
Yeah.
oh my God, it's true. And what a great way to end the worst year with some proof that maybe it's an okay, that it's okay too. And just so many of you said in different ways today, we are gonna make it through, and here we all are, and go team.
That's so true.
Artists are resilient and we're adaptable, and we're the ones who are gonna thrive out of this somehow. Just keep on working and stay healthy and safe.
Amen.
To that.
Yep.
Amen. Amen.
All righty. Well, everybody have a great Saturday night, a great weekend, and get back to the studio.
Happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Hey,
Bye, guys. Thank you
happy
so much.
holidays.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.